Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, where our job is to help you build visibility, professional credibility, and connection with your ideal client by putting the human at the center of innovative marketing, so you can build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship with your ideal clients. I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm honored that you're here with me. If you haven't joined our wonderful marketing transformation community yet, go to innovabiz.co and collect your free gift as well. Do subscribe to the show and also leave a review because it helps others find us. Let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuzz podcast.
I believe that marketing and or sales is only sleazy or unethical when you misrepresent, when you make promises you can't fulfill, and mostly when you misrepresent who you are and what you can do for people, exaggerate even. So there is hyperbole in marketing and sales we have to be careful about. And yes, you're right. It all has to come from that place of service to others. You have to start with the incredible belief of the value that you bring, especially, if you're a consultant, if you have a personal services type business, where in a sense you are the product to a certain degree. I mean, you may have a team, you may have some tools that you use, but you have to believe that you bring that value. Because if you don't, how are you going to talk about what you do in a way that's very effective? How are you going to help people make a decision? So for me, sales is helping people make an educated decision that's in their best interest.
Welcome back. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. If you haven't yet listened to my recent conversations with Noah Labhart of Variable and with George Bryant of the Lighthouse Method, then do check them out after you've listened to today's conversation. I'm really excited to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest today, Referral Coach Bill Cates, who's also author of Radical Relevance and Get Referrals Now. Bill works with organizations and individuals who want to acquire more customers through word of mouth, referrals, and personal introductions. All of his systems and programs have one overall goal in mind: to increase revenue without increasing marketing expenses. In our discussion today, Bill talked to me about having empathy with clients through conversations with them and listening to them. That's the important bit. Solving the right problems with the right service for the right people, and sending the right message through the right medium at the right time to those people. Without further ado, then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Bill Cates. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from Annapolis, Maryland in the USA, Bill Cates, who's an expert in all things customer engagement and acquisition, and also author of multiple books, including Referrals Now and Radical Relevance. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Bill. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Hey, it's a great privilege for me to be a guest. And just in case they misheard you, it's not Bill Gates, it's Bill Cates with a C. So I don't want to disappoint anybody.
Yeah. I did think of that when I saw your name. I thought, I better be careful how I pronounce that. Now, Lindsay Dix, who was our guest on episode 256 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we have a conversation with you, Bill. So big hello to Lindsay.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Lindsay. Thank you.
Now, Bill, you've devoted the last 25 years of your life to the art and science of relationship marketing, as you call it. And I think that's a really good topic to explore here for my audience. And I'm really looking forward to talking about all those things. But before we do that, give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour of your background and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, gosh. I've done quite a bit over the years. I've been in business about 40 years. I've built and sold 2 book publishing companies. And through that, I learned a lot about marketing and sales and just running a business. And a friend of mine suggested that I become a consultant, a speaker, an author. I go, oh, that sounds interesting. I didn't know anything about that world. And I slowly figured it out. And so for 25 years, I've been consulting and speaking and writing. I love it. I love learning and then using what I learn and then finding a way to communicate it to other people so they can use it as well. So it's kind of a fun type of business to be in. And I
Mm.
just love helping people, get an aha and produce some nice results. It's good feedback for me and very rewarding. I don't think I'll ever retire. I just enjoy doing this.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. And these days with the internet, there's so many opportunities to share that knowledge and package it in a way that makes it really easy for people to access and take and do something with.
Right. And what I loved about the book publishing, you mentioned the word package. I loved packaging the books. I love creating the knowledge. And I didn't write them when I was a publisher. I've written since. I had authors, but I love the whole, bringing to life a product. And I used to love getting them, watching them be put in boxes and shipped out, and the trucks coming and picking them up and all that. And that whole packaging thing was great. And now, of course, everything's digital.
Yeah.
So the packaging is different. We have some hard products, of course, but most of it's digital. But it's still a similar phenomenon of creating and packaging and watching people, buy it. So it's a lot of fun.
Mm. All right. So the latest book you've published and written is
Mhm.
Radical Relevance. And what's the meaning of radical relevance? It's a captivating title. What do you understand by radical relevance?
Sure, thank you. So, when I was writing the book, a colleague of mine said, "All right, sounds interesting title, but what is the problem you're trying to solve?" And so that's really in the subtitle, which is sharpen your marketing message, cut through the noise, win more ideal clients. So, a couple of problems I'm trying to help with. Number one is all the noise in the market, right?
Mm.
The internet's been a double-edged sword in the sense that it's made it easier to get our message out, but then now everybody and their mother is trying to get a message out. So it's made it harder to get our message out and cut through all that noise. So by relevance and radical relevance, I mean really fine tuning and honing our message to make sure that we have the right message for the right person at the right time through the right medium in the right way. All of that has to just be right, and a lot of that involves targeting, having the right market that you're going after, and being clear in the market, and then finding the bullseye in that target market, what I call a right fit client. And so the more narrow you get, the more relevant your messaging. One of the biggest words that I've learned that have been helpful for me and I share with others in terms of our marketing message and our sales message, both, is the word empathy. Now, when people think of empathy, they often think of someone going through a tough time. But empathy isn't just for that. Empathy is understanding, empathy is appreciation for. And so the more targeted our market, the more we get to know that world better. And the more our messaging can be empathetic to their world, show that appreciation, understanding. And so we bring them into our story. They appreciate us knowing them a little bit. And we live in a radically relevant world. Look at Google and Amazon and YouTube, and every search engine is designed to be relevant, right? The algorithms are designed to find the relevant answer. And so we're kind of getting used to that. And we want people to approach us with a message that shows some knowingness of who we are. Otherwise, we're going to ignore it.
Yeah, yeah. I love all that. When I read the book, I came across your comment about right message, right person, and so on. And I thought, you've been reading my mind, because I have this saying that I say
Yeah.
marketing is basically communicating the right message effectively to the right audience at the right time and in the right place in a way that provides information that transforms that audience. And I thought,
I like that.
yeah, it's it's almost as if you took that word for word and just changed a few things. But the key thing is, I think it's that is really important, and it means that you can have a really targeted message.
Yeah, and one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, even sometimes experienced marketers make this mistake, is they err on the side of broadening the message,
Hmm.
right? They're creating a little bigger tent. So we don't leave these people out, or we don't leave these people out. And the problem is the bigger the tent you create, the broader you make it, then the weaker your messaging. So you're much better if you have more than one target, or if you have more than one bullseye in a target, that you segment and you make sure that you're delivering the right message to the right person here, and then the right message to the right person there. And so, for instance, on a website, that's a place that I like talking about websites, because it's kind of a canvas where we paint
Hmm.
our messaging, right? And so if you serve more than one target market, make sure that they self-identify very quickly on that website. And then they click the button that takes them into the messaging that's relevant to them. And so you can have more than one target or more than one bullseye, but you want to make sure that these people are only seeing the messages that are related to them and their world. And then you pull them into the story, and then you can talk a little bit about why you can be a resource for them.
Yeah, yeah, that is really great advice, and I love the websites that you jump onto the homepage, and basically it's just a question of what are you interested in, or what are you looking for, and you have
Right.
a way to select from whatever the offers are that business has.
And there's two ways to look at it, and it depends a little bit on the business and who you're attracting. The you're right. The buttons could be, or the selections could be, what are you interested? What is your problem? Is it this problem, this challenge, this opportunity? It could be that, or it could be, who are you? Right?
Mm,
Are you this, or are you this, or are you this? And then based on who you are, kind of putting them first a little bit before we put
yeah,
our offer out there, then they will self-identify, and then we draw them in, and then we talk a little bit more about that. I tend to like to lead with, again, that sense, that empathy, that knowingness of who they are. There's a great book by Donald Miller called "Building Your Story Brand," and
mm,
and he talks about the hero's journey, and he uses Star Wars, the early Star Wars movies, as an example of the hero's journey, the classic hero's journey. So we have Luke Skywalker, who's the hero. We have Yoda, who's the Yoda the guide was, and then we have Darth Vader, the villain, and the guide and the hero team up to fight the villain. Well, we have to make sure that we understand and communicate to our prospects and clients that they are the hero. We are not the hero.
mm.
They are the star of their own story, the hero of their story. We're the guide. And so we're applying for the role, the job of being their guide. And if we start with a message that relates to them and they can understand, then we pull them in, and then we can make the case for why we should be their guide. So, like on my LinkedIn profile, the about section, what I say is, enough about me, let's talk about you.
Yeah.
Right? I want to make it about them first, and then I start to, apply for the job, if you will.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great analogy, and I love the book by Donald Miller. It's a really great metaphor, and the structure that he builds around that as a marketing message is fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, if I remember correctly, he starts off with an understanding of the person you're talking to, the ideal client, which comes back to this empathy thing. So is that what you're suggesting as the first step?
It could be. It depends a little bit on where you are when you're in your business. I mean, if you were just starting out, I would say the best place to start is, what is your area of expertise? What problems do you solve? But I wouldn't get too caught up in that. I would also want to figure out what is the market that you're attracted to, the people that you like to work with, and kind of develop that together. A lot of people are already into their business, but they want to refine a little bit, right?
Mm.
So they already have the product, if you will. They have the solution. If it's consulting, a consulting process, could be some products related to that. And then you want to figure out, all right, what is my market? What is my target market? And then what is the bullseye? So let me give you an example of a business consultant. His name is Todd, and Todd's in Albany, New York. And so Todd, getting into the consulting business, and he was trying to, and it's a little different than some of the folks, that listen to you, but it's a similar phenomenon. So he wanted to work with, obviously business owners, but he wanted to find a target. He wanted to find a niche. He wanted to find a way to distinguish himself and to be better. So he ended up working with heavy construction firms. His clients build bridges and runways and roads and commercial buildings. And then over time, it evolved to the bullseye. So his target is heavy construction. The bullseye are family owned, right? Family owned heavy construction firms where there's multiple generations. And that allows him to bring an expertise and wisdom that someone who focuses on general businesses or even other construction businesses can't bring, right? So he's narrowed so finely that he really stands out in the market. And this is the difference between prospecting and marketing, right? When you find the right market and you then create a reputation for yourself in that market by being a little bit different, a little bit on the unique side, then you start to draw people to you and you don't have to chase them so much. They start to chase you.
Hmm. That's a really great example, and it's sort of the idea of niching down. I mean, a lot of people resist the idea of niching down because there's a fear of missing out of what's outside that niche. There might be a whole lot of people that I could help there. But I like that example because it kind of niches down. So he's focused on the heavy construction, which is the technical aspect of what his clients do, if you like. But then the family-owned one brings a whole set of different problems that he can help work on if he's got the expertise to do that. So, succession planning and
Right.
dealing with family members where, you're delivering tough business messages with a family member that you want to maintain the personal relationship with. And, just to think of a couple of things that come to mind. And so as he becomes expert in helping the family-owned construction business in that, all of a sudden they talk to other businesses who are also family-owned, and there's similar problems. So you're not locking out other possibilities, are you?
No, you're right. It's the fear of missing out is a big one. And the fear is if I just focus on this niche, if I just go after this group, whatever that is, I'm going to miss all this other opportunity. And the truth is, yeah, you may miss most of that opportunity. But if you pick a good market, you won't even notice, right? You'll be so successful in where you are. And because you're a little narrower in your focus, your messaging is going to be more effective, more powerful, and people will see themselves in your messaging. And so you'll attract those folks. So actually, things get easier the more narrow you get. It's got to be a big enough niche, right? It can't be too small. My criteria is it's got to be large enough. They've got to have the financial capacity to take advantage of what you bring to the table, right? And help you in your business and what you're trying to accomplish. You have to figure out where do these people congregate. And by congregate, it could be in person. It could be on the internet. It could be do they have an industry association related to the work they do? But you need to be able to reach them in certain ways. You have to enjoy working with them. I think that's an important criteria in picking that target market. So those are a few of the criteria you want to look for. And if you pick the right one, you can do very well and being very narrow.
Yeah, that's right. And somebody once said to me, there's I think it's seven now, 7 billion people in the world. And if you appeal to 0.1% of those people, you still have, I can't do the maths so quickly this early in the morning, but you still have a hell of a lot of people.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. Now, you touched on empathy earlier in marketing and being empathetic and focusing on the client first and making them the hero of their journey. So tell us a little bit more about how you develop that empathy for your ideal clients. I know you've defined this this niche. How do you develop that empathy? Because that's something that I'm really passionate about, and we have this tool that we use from the business strategy canvas, which is the empathy map. But how do you go about developing that, and how do you kind of maintain that? And we'll go on to the communicating it later.
Yeah, sure. So in I guess it's chapter 1 of the book, I provide the 17 rules of radical relevance, and the rule number 2 is give your clients or customers a seat at the table, meaning you have to have a relentless passion and focus on them, their needs, what's going on with them. And you don't really want to develop any messaging. You don't want to develop any products or services without talking to those people. It's so important. And that's really how you develop the empathy is getting to know the market so well. Sometimes you even get to know the market better than any one of your clients does, right? Because you are exposed to a lot of different folks in that same market, and you bring a lot of knowledge and ideas to the table that they can't even get through the work that they're doing. So it's really getting to know these people and doing the research and talking to them and going in deep. And part of it is the demographics, but the big part really in this idea of empathy is the psychographics.
Mm.
One thing I learned in writing this book is in the chapter 3 is the neuroscience of relevance. So I did a little bit of study on how the brain works, and I'm by no means a neuroscientist, but one thing that I learned is at the core of every decision that every human being makes is emotion. Antonio Damasio discovered that when he studied subjects that had the part of the brain that felt emotion damaged, so they couldn't feel emotion. And if they couldn't feel emotion, they also couldn't make any decisions. It's interesting. It's a direct correlation there. And so if we know that, if we know at the heart of every decision is emotion, then that's where the psychographics of our niche really become important. In other words, what are the fears, the concerns, the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are the aspirations? And these are emotional things, right? And so we can then tailor the message to strike that. We have empathy for that and for the fears, the doubts, the uncertainties, the aspirations, and all of that. And so by understanding the psychographics of our market, then we can really develop the empathy, because empathy really is, if you think about it, I guess there's a intellectual component to it, but there's really more of it's a feeling thing, right? It's getting a sense and appreciation for and an understanding for. And so that's where I see that coming from, is just really getting to know the fears, the doubts, the concerns, the aspirations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent with what we do in our empathy mapping exercise, and it really digs deeper. I was always a bit frustrated in the very early days when I started looking at this, at all the demographics, ideal client exercises that were out there, and kind of stopped after the demographics. And I thought there must be more to this, and started to learn about people's decision making criteria and that. And the fascinating thing is, people have different styles for making decisions. So, for example, I will, if I'm buying something technical, I'll compare things and put up a spreadsheet and start to compare numbers and so on, which is a very analytical way to do it. But regardless, and there's people that see something and like it and buy, or want to listen to it, or they want to feel it and touch it. But at the end of the day, it's all an emotional decision, and their criteria then that they have for kind of making that decision is actually just a justification criteria. So
Yeah,
it's the emotion that decides, right? And then they
well,
justify
yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, and I would say it's a little more than that, in the sense it's the technical, the analytic, the intellectual measuring and comparing and statistics and all that stuff. I think it's more than just justifying. I think that will actually create the emotional response, right? In other words, if you're looking at a product and the specs on one product are superior than the specs on another product, right? That's an intellectual thing. I'm looking at, like on a microphone, the frequency range or whatever. And then you see you see the difference, and then you go, better, right? That's the right one for me. So it's still an emotional response at the end of the day. It's I feel good about this decision, right? It's the right decision for me. And that's really what your prospects and potential clients want from you. They want the statistics. They want the graphs and the things to help them think through their decision. But at the end of the day, what they really want to know is, are you right for me? Right?
Mm.
And does it feel right? Because if you're comparing things that are somewhat close, then ultimately it's, which feels better.
Yeah.
And and a lot of that will come from how we present it, right? How we show up and our confidence that we bring to the presentation that helps people feel more confident about moving with us versus going with somebody else.
Mm. All right. So, I mean, the book's divided up into 4 sections, which to me is a little bit the process that you're proposing here. So now that we have an understanding of the target market and the ideal client a little bit more, we've built this empathy. What's the next step?
Well, yeah, and you're right that we talk about the first section is the case for radical relevance and why it's
Mm.
so important to think in these terms, and the second one is strategic relevance, which is the big decisions, the target market, the ideal client, how we're going to differentiate ourselves out there a little bit, and then we start to get tactical, and so tactical relevance and how that shows up in approaching prospective clients and in the sales process a little bit. And so just a few ideas here. We know that the more you know about a prospect, the more likely you're going to convey the message that's going to appeal to them, right? So relevance is all about context. And so the better you have, the more context you have about someone you're reaching out to, then the more effective your message is going to be, hopefully. And so a lot of what we talk about is the research, doing the research before you reach out to a prospective client. And there's 2 types of research to help you create a more relevant message. There's the cold research, which is internet research, essentially.
Mm.
Probably before there was an internet, we did it other ways, but now you look at the website, you look at LinkedIn profile, you look at, the annual report. If it's a large corporation, you get that information. But then there's the warm research, and that's what comes from people who know the people you're reaching out to. So forever, I focused on referrals and personal introductions. And so getting introduced to folks the fastest way to become relevant in someone else's life, if you're reaching out to someone you don't know and they don't know you, the straightest line to relevance is an introduction from someone they do know and
Mm.
trust. And from that person, you can learn about your prospect, things that you probably wouldn't pick up other ways. What's most important to them? Tell me about their personality, what's driving them in business, et cetera. And then you have a much more rounded and you have more context. And so therefore you have a more relevant message. So that's one way the tactical aspect shows up. Another way is how you talk about what makes you different. So there's the bigger sense of what makes you different and how you've decided to target a market, et cetera. But then how does that show up tactically? How does that show up when you're reaching out to someone with on a phone or Zoom or Skype or email? And so I actually picked up a formula in the book from Karen Kopp is her name, and she wrote a book called BizDev, BizDev, which is short for business development, BizDev done right. And she calls it the differentiation gap. And it goes like this. Anyone can, only we can, for example. So a financial advisor, for instance, could say, anyone can provide products and services to help you with your financial life. Only we are one of the few that actually focuses on your company. And so we know the strengths and weaknesses of your company's benefits package. And so we can anticipate problems, blah, 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 right? So anyone can, only we can. And then, for example, so again, that's just another tactical way to create a more relevant message that someone can resonate with and say, oh, that's different. Yeah, I can see you understand my world better. So I will pay attention to your message.
Mm. Yeah, which comes back to the title again, the radical relevance, right? Because you've sort of focused in on that niche, you've focused in on what makes you different, and but in a way that speaks to the problem that they might have.
Exactly.
Mm.
One of the things that I learned is, and you mentioned problem, I met this gentleman by the name of Michael Skock. He is a venture capitalist out of Boston, Massachusetts, and he presented I guess, a template or a graph of how to make sure we're going after the right problems, to make sure that our business is oriented towards solving the right problems that will not just capture the attention of prospects, but capture their willingness to put resources towards solving the problem.
Hmm.
He says if we're just trying to solve problems that are aspirational, things that they want to take care of someday, well, they may not devote the resources, the time, the energy, the dollars to solving that. But if it's a critical problem, right? If it's something, there's a deadline to it, or they're bleeding money, right? They won't survive in business another month if they don't solve the problem. That's what will garner someone's interest, attention, dollars, resources to solve. And so we've got to make sure that we understand what the critical problems are. And if someone's expressing a problem that they have, they don't think it's critical, they think they can live with it. And then we can show them how it is critical, that right, that may not be in business much longer if this keeps happening. Then we've shifted that, right, from an aspirational problem to solve to a critical problem to solve. And now we've got their attention. And so if we're trying to move people forward in the decision-making process, we have to try to focus as much we can on those critical problems. Now, some people will work to solve aspirational problems, but our chances are weaker in terms of moving them to work with us.
So that comes back a little bit then to the to articulating the message very clearly and being radically relevant, which is one of the key messages of the book. And it comes back to, you mentioned Donald Miller earlier. One of his mantras is clarity beats cleverness. And so tell us a little bit more about how do you develop the message from all of this understanding now, and in a way that appeals to the ideal client. I mean, you've given us an example there, but how do you go about that?
Well, he's right. Clarity meets cleverness, and beats cleverness. And one of the things I say, it's similar, is that we can't let our creativity or cleverness get in the way of clarity. And it doesn't mean we can't be creative. It doesn't mean we can't be clever. We just have to make sure that we do it in a way that's still clear to people. So I'll give you an example. I do a lot of work with financial professionals, so that's some of my examples. And there was a financial advisor once in a session. He says, "Well, I like to tell people I'm a financial nutritionist." And so we all kind of thinking, financial nutritionist, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
So it means there's different components, and we make sure we handle all the vitamins and minerals. It's like, it's clever. It sounds kind of interesting on the surface, but if you think about it, you don't really know what it means. And and does it create credibility for this person, right? Do we want that person to be our financial advisor? I don't know. But I was interviewing a financial advisor out of Canada. Now, not all financial advisors can make this claim, but in Canada, the rules are a little different than they are in the US. So this guy says, I help my clients create indestructible wealth. Now, that's clever. That's creative. You don't hear indestructible and wealth together often, right? So that's something that you haven't heard before. It's unfamiliar, but it's instantly clear.
Yeah.
And so we usually want to talk in terms of things that are familiar, that are already in the brain, concepts that are already in there. That's what allows us to be clear. So if we are going to create, put some words together that aren't, now in my book, Radical Relevance, right? Those are two words you don't hear. And without the subtitle, that book title would mean nothing. Right? So you got to make sure that if you're going to have a clever title, you better have a pretty straightforward subtitle that locks it down and makes it clear to someone. What I've learned in the study of the brain a little bit is that 6 times a second, the human brain, and then 6 times a second, you think about it, that's pretty fast. The human brain is going, where am I? Am I safe? Where am I? Am I safe? Right? And then 3 times a second, it's going, is there an opportunity? So the brain was built first and foremost to keep the organism alive, safety, right? Where am I? Am I safe? But it was also built for action. It was the brain likes to take advantage of opportunity and learn new things, etc., but only when it feels safe. So that how does that apply to us? Well, it means that when we're communicating our value proposition, when we're thinking about how we're going to talk to prospects and such, uh, be it a website, LinkedIn profile, email, whatever it is, then we usually want to start with an understanding of the challenges, the problems, right? As I mentioned earlier, because that's what the brain's looking for first. Do you understand that I'm trying to stay safe? Do you understand that I have some challenges in this area? Once you demonstrate that you know that I feel safe with you, I will now listen to how you can help me achieve things that I aspire to. So if we just deliver the message in a way that the brain is used to, processing that information. And so in a very subtle, the prospect doesn't even really know that we're delivering the message in the way the brain wants to receive it. And we don't just focus on the problems. We don't just focus on the aspirations or the goals. We focus on both. And so we capture both parts of what the brain is trying to accomplish.
Hmm. Yeah, that comes back to the neuroscience you mentioned earlier, right? Now, one thing I'd like to kind of get you to clarify for me, because in this conversation, and I've had conversations like this with some people, and some people feel that selling or marketing is a little bit sleazy and unethical. I think one of the points about all of this is that it's all in the service of the client, right? And so
Oh,
if
yeah.
you have the expertise or the product to solve a problem for a client, and particularly if it's a critical problem like you described earlier, then why wouldn't you help them? And why wouldn't you communicate it to them in a way that they understand, so that they know, hey, you're a person that can help me solve this problem?
Yeah, I believe that marketing and or sales is only sleazy or unethical when you misrepresent, when you
Mm.
make promises you can't fulfill, and mostly when you misrepresent who you are and what you can do for people, um, exaggerate even. So there is hyperbole in marketing and sales we have to be careful about. And yes, you're right. It all has to come from that place of service to others. You have to start with the incredible belief of the value that you bring, especially if you're a consultant, if you have a personal services type business where in a sense you are the product to a certain degree. I mean, you may have a team, you may have some tools that you use, but you have to believe that you bring that value, because if you don't, how are you going to talk about what you do in a way that's very effective? How are
Mm.
you going to help people make a decision? So for me, sales is helping people make an educated decision that's in their best interest. That's it. That's what we do, right? We educate, we ask questions, right? Asking questions can also educate. We ask questions, we teach, we help them come to a place where they can make an educated decision that's in their best interest. And that may be not working with us.
Mm.
We have to be okay with that. I mean, I turn down business sometimes if I don't feel that I can be the right person for them. So if you come from that perspective, or we're just educating people to make the right decisions in their best interest, nothing sleazy about that, right? We're a teacher, we're a consultant, we're just helping them figure out what's right. And the timing may be right for us to work with them and solve that problem. The timing may not be right, or we may not be the right person, right? What's in their best interest? If you come from that place, you're always on pretty safe ground.
Yeah, yeah. And certainly I mean, one of the things that being really clear about who your ideal client is and who you want to work with is that you can say to some people who might approach you that I don't think you're a good fit for me, or I don't think we're a good fit for you,
Mhm.
but I know somebody that you might like to talk to, which means that you've served them. You've turned them away, but you've served them in a way that takes them on the next step of their journey.
It does. It serves them better. So here's the way and it serves you better too, right?
Mm.
Because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
taking on clients that aren't right for us for whatever reason. They're not taking us in the way we want to go with our business, or it's not us doing the work we really want to do and we're best at. You'll end up creating a lose-lose situation ultimately. Now, some people will take on business that they shouldn't out of a sense of neediness or scarcity, not a good place to come from. Some people will take on business they shouldn't take. It's not the exact fit because they don't know how to say no, right? They want to help people. So it's easier to say no when you have relationships with other consultants and other services that you can say, I'm not the right person, and I know someone who may very well be the right person. This also helps, by the way, when someone is referred to you, because sometimes when someone's referred or introduced to us, we have I believe, a false sense of obligation to that referral source to help this person, even if we're not the right person to help them, right? And so if we can direct them to someone who is right for them, then we're creating win-win-win situations instead of lose-lose-lose situations.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And I think, I mean, I've made this mistake early on in my business, taking on business, and that probably wasn't a really good. Well, it wasn't a really good fit, and it causes a lot of grief for me, and it did cause a lot of grief for me and my team. And as a result, you kind of become a little bit resentful. It means that you're not focused as much on the things that you do enjoy and the people you do enjoy working with and the people who are a really good fit. And of course, from the client's point of view, he's becoming frustrated as well because he's sensing all that and he's also not getting the service that perhaps he expects.
Yeah, the last thing you want to feel in serving clients is a sense of resentment. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just terrible, right?
Mm.
And you're right, somewhere or another, that's going to show up somehow. So that's why when in the book, I talk about right fit clients. What is a right fit client? Well, it's people you were meant to serve and people who are meant to be served by you, people who appreciate your value for the reasons you want to be appreciated.
Mm.
You call it your business soulmate. And, not every client's going to be that perfect
Yeah.
business soulmate, but if at least you're in the ballpark, then it's going to be more joyful. You're going to do better work for them. They're going to sense it. You become more referable, so they'll introduce you to others. And, right fit clients, generally speaking, are more profitable clients, are they not? Because you're in your wheelhouse, you're in your element, and it's more efficient for you, and you're serving the better and all of that. So there's, and look, when you're first getting started in the business, everybody's has fallen into that trap of taking on people that you shouldn't take on, and some people still do that years into the business, and so that we can send them to a psychologist to figure that one out. Right. So, but we've all done that before. Part of it's just keeping the lights on and keeping our business going. But
Mm.
once we have those right fit clients and those folks that are almost a joy to work with, think about developing a business that brings joy. That's
Yeah.
not a word that's used a lot when we think about client acquisition and client service. But why not aspire to that of a
Mm.
business where you and they feel joy in the working relationship? Not always attainable, but if it's a goal, you're going to get closer to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I tell people when we do the ideal client exercise, I say, base it on someone that you already have as a client that you really enjoy working with, that you enjoy working with, you're making a difference to their life and their business. They're really happy. And then I say, now pick the person who, if you were trapped on a desert island for the next 20 years, pick the client who you'd be absolutely comfortable with having there. And I say that's build your ideal client avatar around that person.
Interesting. When you did that, I started to think of who among my clients I would want to do that with, and I don't know. That's a hard exercise. It's a steep, ask. It's a big
Hmm.
ask to figure that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is really fascinating, Bill. I could go on talking ideal clients and empathy marketing and how to craft your message for ages, but I'm aware of the time, so I think it's a good point to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience, who are primarily leaders in their field, with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions, and hopefully you'll give us some really insightful answers. Not that you haven't given us lots of insightful information already, but some more insightful answers that'll inspire
Oh
the
boy,
listener
I'm on the hot seat now.
to
Okay.
do something awesome today. Well, a lot of these questions come back to what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So what's the number one thing you think anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Oh gosh, I think it's to reach outside of oneself and to get to know the market, the clients. We talked a little bit about that, but
Mm.
I think sometimes it's hard to find innovation and creativity just looking inside. I mean, I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying we can't do that and go to a quiet place and maybe come up with ideas we would have thought of. But most of my innovative ideas actually come from talking with my clients and prospective clients and just listening to their world and what's important to them. And then, then I'll put 2 and 2 together in my head
Mm.
and come up with an idea, a concept, a product, a service, an offer that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So
Yeah.
that's my formula, at least.
Yeah, and I love that. And it comes back to being relevant too, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Yep.
can have ideas that you think are brilliant, but nobody else is interested in. So
I've
I
had a lot of those over the years. I can assure you. Sounded
yeah,
good at the time.
yeah. I think we all get those.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Uh, for me, and maybe just I'm built this way of being external rather than internal. You talked earlier about how buying styles, and I learned something a long time ago that some people have what they call when they're buying something, they're internally sorting, meaning they're looking in themselves, they're thinking, they're doing the analysis like you do, and they come to the best decision. And if a salesperson, let's say, says, like if they're going to buy a TV, and the salesperson says, can I help you? They go, no, I'm figuring it. I've got it. I'm figuring it out. Right. And then there's the external sort, the person who's going, well, what would you buy? Right. What would you do? I'm confused. They all seem the same to me. Well, that's kind of my way towards innovation is, so I've surrounded myself with other people. I have several study groups of other folks in different types of businesses. I want to make sure they're not just in my business. When they know my business, that's good. They can help me with ideas. But when they don't know my business, that can be good too, right?
Mm.
Having context about someone's business can be good. You can help them. But not having context about their business can also allow you to help them, because you might give them a blinding flash of the obvious, right? You might say,
Mm.
I mean, you've done that in your own business consulting. Any consultant has done that, where we say something that is totally obvious to us. Have you considered this?
Yeah.
And they go, wow, you're brilliant. And so
That's
I
right.
want to surround myself with people who don't know my business and people who do know my business. So I'm externally sorting for my innovation, if you will, to use that metaphor.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. And, your example about coming up with something that is so mundane to you, but somebody else says, "Oh, that's really brilliant." And I think there's actually a trap, and I find myself falling into this all the time. Is that
Mm.
um, there's things that you are just second nature to you, and you assume that everybody else thinks they're second nature as well. And when you have that conversation with somebody and they, oh, wow, you're brilliant, all of a sudden there's an opportunity because, well, it's second nature to me, but obviously not to other people. And yet they might need help with that. So that's something that I've got.
Yeah. Well, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. So, um, and right, things that for your own, that you consult with other folks, you may not even be doing it for your own business. Right. So sometimes it
Mm.
takes that person outside the picture to point out what it really is, should be obvious for us, but isn't.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just writing down that quote. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. I like that, which is, it kind of comes back to the empathy, right? You get outside the frame and have a look at the picture from there.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Mm. All right. Now, do you have a favorite resource that you use most often?
A favorite resource. I The only thing I can think of really is just searching. I love Google. I love searching. I love, trying to figure things out. And I think it's because, I have a liberal arts degree. I have a degree in sociology. I wasn't trained for anything specific. Um, so I've learned how to learn. And they say that sometimes liberal arts majors make good business people because they know how to learn things and they're not restricted by certain, parameters, if you will, or standards of how people tend to do
Mm.
things. Uh, the only thing I can think of really is I love researching things. I love figuring it out. I love going the deeper research to learn things that I wouldn't. So that's my research. That's my resource is research really. So it's
Mm.
nothing earth shattering. It's not an app that I
Yeah.
could share really. It's just taking that extra time to learn how to learn about people.
Yeah, I really like that because I mean I'm a little bit that way inclined too. I mean, one of my core values is just growth and learning, and I love researching stuff on the internet and then digging down a rabbit hole when something really interests me.
Right.
Um, okay, now what's the best way to keep a client on track?
Best way to keep a client on track is to well, the work I like to do with my clients, if I can, and sometimes some clients have done this already, and sometimes we have to do that work with them, but it's to make sure we know what their values are, right? Their own personal values and the values of the company. Sometimes we help them create that. Sometimes they've got them done. The mission, the vision. This is that standard work that everybody does. It's sometimes a little trite, but
Mm.
it's important because we have to keep referring back to that. And what a lot of companies do is they do this work and then they forget about it. They can't articulate what their mission and vision and values, and no one who works for the company can articulate that. But if you do that work and you keep it lively in your awareness, and you even let it infiltrate how you talk to your clients sometimes about our mission is this, or we're trying to accomplish this. So we always come back to that, right? Is it true to the values? Is it true to the mission? Is it true to the vision? And if they come up with an idea or a place they want to go in terms of the work I'm doing with them, if it's not true to that, then we have to, stop and we have to
Mm.
say, okay, do we amend the vision, the mission, right? Is this just a distraction or is this becoming core to what you want to do? And sometimes people will say, well, no, I think we really truly need to move in this direction, in which case fine, and we make it work and we get feedback from other people to make sure it is the right decision. Or they may say, no, you're right, I got distracted, I'm tempted by this.
Mm.
We all experience that, and so we go back. So it's just staying true, and using values, mission, and vision to stay true to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great way to do it. And I had to laugh when you said people do this exercise and then they forget about it. I remember certainly at least two occasions in my corporate career with the same company where we got together probably 200 senior managers from all around the world
Mm.
in a conference center for 5 days working on this. The first time was really exciting, lots of great stuff. The consultants that ran the session were actually really good, and everybody went away really excited. And I think all the documents and all the vision and mission and values work was put in the drawer. And I think a year later, nobody could remember much of it other than the event itself.
Well, and this is why people resist doing that,
Hmm.
because they've done it before and it hasn't become a living, breathing piece
Yeah.
of work that guides the company. And so no wonder you don't want to go there again, because what happened last time. But if
Yeah.
you keep it lively, then it actually is important work and you want to revisit it from time to time to make sure everything is in congruency.
And it comes back to having that really radically relevant message because it sort of has to reflect the values and the mission and vision of the company.
Right. And
And
sometimes the value proposition or what you communicate to your prospects and clients can be identical to your mission. It's
mm,
not always, but I've seen that happen sometimes where their reason for being, which is the mission, is congruent with their value proposition. This is what we do. We work with these people to help them accomplish this, and it's one and the same. And it's wonderful when that happens. It doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes if the mission is in line with is the value proposition, it's one and the same. There's that congruency. What happens is, it's not just if you're a high level executive and you need to know that to guide the ship of your company, but you want everyone in the company to be on the same page. And ultimately that allows you to track the right people, right? Because everyone's communicating that in the right way to the right person is going to attract the right people. And we don't worry about the ones that aren't supposed to be attracted.
Yeah, that's right. It's all connected.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, we have discussed this at a surface level a little bit. What's the number one thing you think anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Well, you can have more than one differentiation, first of all. So, we have talked about this, the target market, the bullseye, the specific types of people. There's other ways to differentiate yourself too. It could be your process, right? The process that you use to discover their gaps, the situation. And you may have a unique way to do that. You mentioned empathy mapping. I suspect that's part of your process. It's probably a unique process that allows you to learn about people that they also find helpful, right? The process should not just help you as the consultant in learning about them so you'd be a better consultant. It should be helping them at the same time, creating that awareness, et cetera, right? And so the process can be what makes you different. It could be the delivery and how you stay in touch with people in a way that makes you a little bit different. I'll tell you, if you get stuck and you're not quite sure what makes you a little different, and it's hard to be unique, right? It's hard to be completely unique in this world. I guess you could be, especially if you have a patent, perhaps, that someone else doesn't have. But one way to help you with this conversation is, again, give your clients a seat at the table, right? Is to talk to them.
Yeah.
And say to them, what, from your perspective, what makes us different from other consultants, other companies, other people you've used over the years you observed, right? If you were to introduce me to a colleague of yours and the work we do for you, how would you describe that? What would you say that makes us a little different? And so sometimes we can get that from our customers, not always, or our clients. And we have to avoid the platitudes. We have to avoid if most other people can say it, then it's not a differentiator.
Yeah.
Right. So to say we deliver great, we get to know our clients and we give great client service, customized solutions. Who doesn't say that? Right. And so if everyone else is saying it, then it's not a differentiator unless you can have a really specific, clear example of what that looks like. And then now you're starting to use that as the examples of how you deliver that attitude can then start to be a differentiator. So, you want to bring all these things home with examples.
Yeah. And that speaks to the clarity part again, and the safety, what you were talking about earlier, the brain thinking that, am I safe 6 times a minute? Or 6 times a second, wasn't it?
Yeah. 6 times a second. Yeah.
Yep.
6 times a minute wouldn't be enough because somewhere in between there's
that's right. It's a trap.
Attack you and you're dead.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Bill. This has been really great. Now, where can people find out more about you and get a hold of your books and maybe even get in touch to say thank you for what you've shared with us today?
Sure. I appreciate it. I got three resources for folks. One is we actually have a little quiz, a little assessment. It takes about 3 minutes, and it's called the Radical Relevance Quiz, www.radicalrelevancequiz. Simple thing, give you a sense of where you stand with this. A little fun to take. You can share it with others. To learn more about the book, Radical Relevance Book, right? Radical Relevance Book. And then my main website is referralcoach.com. So I haven't given up on helping businesses multiply their best clients. That's something we've been doing forever. And so it's referralcoach.com, and this Radical Relevance is some new content that we're introducing.
All right, we'll post links to all of those in the show notes so people can click straight through.
Thank you.
So what parting advice would you like to leave our listener today?
Gosh, I would say something that I learned a long time ago, that it's going to sound like kind of duh. Yeah, I know that. But it just keeps serving me very well as a business person and as just a human. And that is, what you put your attention on grows stronger in your life, right? Maybe some people have said, what you think about, you become. What you put your attention on grows stronger in your life. And so I'm always aware, mostly always aware of what I'm thinking about, what I'm feeling, where am I putting my attention. And when I find myself going down that rabbit hole of resentment, that rabbit hole of negativity, then once I'm aware of it, then I shift. And whether I sing a song or listen to music or just, do something different to change the state, then I shift, and that's made a huge difference. And related to that is a quote from Vince Lombardi, a great football coach, American football coach, said, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." So when we're tired, we don't have the courage that we do when we're not tired. And so you put those two together, right? Fatigue makes cowards of us all. What we put our attention on grows stronger in our life. Then we can catch ourselves. We can catch ourselves going down that negative rabbit hole that we don't need to go. We can just say, I'm tired, right? We'll deal with this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So that's my philosophy for life, I guess.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. And it's also particularly relevant at this time because as we record this, of course, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and many of us are in lockdown mode. And I see a lot of people around the world getting very frustrated about being locked down. And yet I see also a lot of people coming up with some really creative ideas, how to stay in touch with others, how to bring humor and to the situation. And so that's really good advice.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, finally, Bill, who would you like me to chat with on a future InnovaBuzz podcast and why?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think. Donald Miller. Have you reached out to Donald Miller? And
I haven't actually. I'd love to have a conversation with Donald. Yeah.
He's a smart guy, and he's got some good information, and it's a nice piggyback to some of the things I've been talking about. So he's certainly one guy that I'd recommend. And I'll put my thinking cap on. I bet you I can come up with a few others.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for that. So we'll certainly make an effort to reach out to Donald and get him on. I love his work and really resonate with his whole approach to marketing. Okay. Well, thanks so much today for all that you've shared with us, Bill. I've really enjoyed this. I've learned quite a bit as to the backgrounds of the Radical Relevance and some things that explained stuff that I read in the book, but I'd certainly encourage the listener to go purchase the book, read it. It's a great read and lots of wonderful information there. So thanks a lot for what you've shared with us today, Bill. I wish you all the best for the future and let's stay in touch.
Thank you. And same to you. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that informative and very engaging conversation with Bill and took something away from his episode. He certainly delivered a clear and consistent message that I summarise as reach out and listen to customers, to the outside perspectives of your community, and build on your empathy. I love the quote, "You can't see the picture when you're in the frame." I'm curious to know what you took away from Bill's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Bill Cates. That is BILLCATES. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Bill Cates. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Bill there, as well as links to the Referral Coach website, to his Radical Relevance quiz, his books, his social media pages, and the other resources we spoke about in today's conversation. Bill suggested that we have a conversation with Donald Miller from StoryBrand on a future InnovaBuzz podcast episode. So Donald, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast courtesy of Bill Cates. Tune in again to the next episodes of the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we've got some more fantastic guests lined up, including former lead solo pilot of the Blue Angels, Sloan Fellow at the Stanford School of Business and developer of the Fearless Success System, John Foley, as well as on-demand CFO, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show to be reminded of new episodes. It's free to subscribe. Leave a review if you like. Even if you don't like me, I'm okay with that. I'm asking you to leave a review because it helps other people find this show. Go to InnovaBuzz.co to join our marketing transformation community and access a free gift my team and I made for you. It's the Marketing Master Mini Class. We want to give you everything you need to transform your marketing into a human-centered, relationship-focused growth engine. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.